Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt
And
Roach.
I'm Jessica Bun Bun.
This is our Pluribus Season 1, Episode 3 reaction and review.
Mm-hmm.
This episode, thankfully, really picked up this theme from Episode 2, which I thought was very, very good. But in the midst of all of this entertainment, and boy, was there plenty of that,
Yeah.
we also got an opportunity to learn a little bit more about these beings, aliens, whatever we want to call them, their intentions, and a little bit about how that's applying to Carol and what she's dealing with.
It was also really interesting to see that conversation with Carol and Zosia, where both of them felt like they were the people on the right side of this, bringing the other person over. Having Zosia like look at her and be like, "Hey, if you see somebody drowning, you're going to throw them a life preserver, right?" And she's like, "I'm the person that's drowning." Like it was just very interesting to see that they really think they're doing the right thing here.
They do. They are fully convinced that they're the good guys, or,
Isn't everybody convinced they're the good guys?
I tend to think so. I'm convinced that I'm one of the good guys, but I just feel
Are
like
you? No,
that's
I'm kidding.
well, that is the thing, right? It's that maybe they think what they're doing is good because they've convinced themselves this over the years, but it's also possible they know that they're doing bad and they're just trying so hard to do good to overcompensate for it. We just get to this in discussion in this episode, all these things they're willing to give Carol, these dangerous, dangerous things. And I'm sitting back and feeling like, all right, even if you guys put on your do-gooder shoes every day and go out to the street, like, this stuff is bad. And if you can't say no to Carol, that means that there just has to be something nefarious underneath the surface here.
Or something that's really their lives are on the line. And in our premiere review for episodes 1 and 2, we went over this a little bit where, we saw the clock at the very beginning going down until everything went down. And then we started to see it go back up again. And my tinfoil hat theory is just that they have the same amount of time here where it took that amount of time to get to this point. They only have this many days until they're all dead. If they don't bring everybody into the collective, nobody lives. Like, I think their lives are on the line. So that's why they're like, "Oh, you want this? You want whatever you want. We're willing to do this until we can find a way to bring you over, because otherwise all our lives are on the line."
Two words that really support that theory: biological imperative. And
Yes.
imperative means that's something you absolutely have to do, and there's no real way around that.
Yes.
We're going to get into a whole lot more from this episode. We have so many theories to talk through. So many visual cues in this episode are really,
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yes.
Also, we're taking a trip to Sprouts. But before we go any further here, be sure to hit that subscribe button, because we are going to be here with all things Pluribus. We have reviews, previews, theories, multiple videos coming your guys' way every single week.
Also, the Fallout Season 2 trailer dropped today. That's a show we are extremely excited about. We covered Season 1. We love the games. We love the show. We love Walton Goggins. We will be having reviews here at the channel, so make sure you hit that subscribe button and stick with us.
We really, really appreciate that.
Okay, I want to start this video, since my tinfoil hat is already on.
Yep.
Talking about those band-aids, those purple band-aids that are on Carol's fingers, because sure, they might be there from digging that hole to be able to bury Helen, because they weren't there before that time, and then they were there after that time with no explanation. But my tinfoil hat theory is that they are not from her getting blisters from digging that hole, because she was digging the hole. Then she had, Zosia come in and she was pickaxing the hole. And then they were like, you know what? Okay, we're going to bring in an excavator.
Yeah.
I don't think that she just has these on from blisters. And Vince Gilligan's like, you know what? We don't need to see her just, putting on band-aids. But you are going to show us those band-aids very prominently in this episode. They were there in the last episode, but they were very prominent in this one. So my tinfoil hat theory is this. Zosia has said, yeah, we're working around the clock to try to find a way to make sure that the 13 of you are going to be brought over. We all have to be part of it, or none of this works. So that's what we're doing. Okay, so if that's what you're doing, like, how are you doing that? So I think that under these band-aids, they've taken samples from Carol, whether it's blood, DNA, whatever it is, they've taken samples from her and they're working on it. And they've just like men in blacked her memory, or they're just, whatever it is. And she just can't remember why they're there. And she's, we even see her like picking at them, almost like they're there and she thinks she knows they're there, but I think that that's what's happened, that she just doesn't know why they're there. They've taken samples and they're testing them.
I think this is really, really interesting. And I think just like earlier, there's a lot of evidence to back this up. And I think we can really look at the exact words of Zosia, who says that they're working on trying to figure out what's happening with Carol. And the idea that they also know the whereabouts of all these other people who have seemingly been resistant to this suggests, okay, well, then you're working on all of them. You're trying to figure
Yes.
out directly why they have not turned. And it doesn't feel like, at least to me, I'm not a scientist, I don't even play one on TV, it just makes sense that you're not going to use somebody who's already turned for research, because that's not actually going to help you. Like, you need to study on a biological level the people who are not going along with your imperative.
Yeah, and I feel like the people that are trying to go along, the people that were on the plane, they were like, actually, I want to turn because I want to be with my family, that they're probably just giving this information over.
Yeah.
Like, how else are they moving through this to figure out how to turn her if no one's really speaking to her except to bring her breakfast, bring her whatever she wants, dig a hole for her? They're not actually getting to the meat of anything to figure out why she hasn't turned. So I feel like they're taking samples.
And it also feels like there's a pretty easy explanation that Zosia, any of these other joined people could argue with her, which is just that, okay, you were gardening, you were doing all this strenuous labor. We tried to give you water so that you wouldn't dehydrate yourself.
Hat, gloves,
Yeah.
throw the hat over the fence.
So, like, what happened here is just you went too hard, you passed out, you lost some of your memory, and then we stitched you up so that you would just be A-okay. And I think that in that situation, Carol feels like a pretty logical person. It's not that hard for her to then sit back and be like, okay, this makes a whole lot of sense. Now, let's talk about it from a color perspective here, because any of you who are longtime Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul fans, Vince Gilligan loves color theory. Purple is meant to represent wisdom. It can represent ambition. Like, ambition, something that I think very much applies to someone like Carol.
Absolutely. It also is the color of royalty, somebody who is special, the one sort of thing. And that's what's happening with these 13 people. They are the 13 special people that didn't end up turning, that now everyone in the world is waiting on them hand and foot to make sure that they're okay until they can figure it out.
Show of hands out there as well. Who has just random purple band-aids lying around in their medicine cabinets?
That was one of the other things. When I saw the purple band-aids, I was just like, okay, they're purple on purpose for probably the color theory, also for us to notice it. But yeah, who over the age of like 7 or 8 is like rocking band-aids that are Spider-Man, unicorns, purple, unless it's like a medical tape that just happened to be, purple or blue or whatever. But I don't know. It was a bit odd.
It's very odd, and they have just been featured too much at this point for all of us to be able to ignore them.
Yeah, she's even picking at like it feels like we're supposed to be looking.
Yeah,
And we are.
very, very much. And I think this episode in general, it presented a couple of things that I think were really meant to put a lot of attention into. The Band-Aids is a clear and obvious one. Another one now is this mysterious gentleman from Paraguay, because Paraguay was mentioned in episode 2, and then here in episode 3, Carol has a very, very brief conversation with this guy. Like, it feels like there are a lot more conversations we're going to be having about this gentleman down the road, but just the idea that he's seemingly so resistant to anyone contacting him, speaking with him about any of this. This may be the second Carol of this show in a way. If it's this hard for Carol to talk to him, then obviously beyond just the language barrier, he just doesn't trust anybody.
No, he doesn't, and he shouldn't. I mean, this is such a such a bizarre, strange thing. Like, I would probably be a Carol as well at this point, being like, I just don't know what this is, and I'm not willing to give over to, question mark at this point. But I understand her getting really frustrated with it. There's only, 12 other people
Yeah.
besides her that are in her position, and most of them are just, they're not interested in talking to her or really dealing with it. She's looking for someone who's in science because she thinks that that might be the way to get out of it, which kind of makes sense. I
Yeah.
mean, watching these types of shows, there's always somebody looking for, like, okay, well, who are the science people? Let's go get the doctors, kind of thing. And she ends up landing on this guy. And this guy, man, he really doesn't want to be in touch with anybody. So
No.
she's like, then that is my guy.
Yeah, and he was seemingly very resistant from this collective because in episode 2 they mentioned they just figured him out. Like, this was very, very quickly in the span of time that we saw in that episode.
Yeah, he's not interested in talking to Carol. My Spanish is almost nothing, but like, I understood some of what he was saying, and it wasn't nice.
No, I think we all learned some of those words when we were in middle school, kind of figuring things out for ourselves. Okay, a lot of this episode, though, wider themes seem to be all about what can we do to make Carol happy? How far are we willing to go? And I think that's why that conversation stood out more, because this is the one thing that Carol cannot have. First and foremost, though, we see this presented in an incredibly ridiculous comedic way, which is
Mhm.
that Carol wants nothing more than to have her sprouts back. And I'm just going to throw this out here. This is not sponsored, but I am a freak for
I
sprouts.
know, it's so good.
I
It's
literally
so overpriced, but oh my God.
Okay, here's pro tip. I shouldn't even be sharing this. I go to Sprouts every single day. This is not a joke. And I go to see the discounted meat because anytime I get their meat that's like 80% off, I'll just stick it in the freezer. It's way cheaper than anything else. So, Carol, I see you. I feel you. I would also want my Sprouts to be completely packed.
Oh my God, their meat sales and fish sales when they're on sale,
Yes.
like, oh my God, I once completely cleaned them out of ground beef because it was like $1 a pound.
Yeah, that's really, really great for that. But I think it's just a touch of relatability where we all like
Yes.
routines in
Yep.
our lives. And like the Sprouts is the closest grocery store to where I live. So that's one of the reasons that I'm there often. And I think for Carol, a lot of that is just I want the freedom to go and choose something for myself. And because these beings are not capable of this idea, or at least this is what they're presenting, they don't see the purpose of any sort of place that someone has to go to and make choices. We can just give you what you want. You don't have to go through this process. We're just instant gratification for you, Carol.
Yeah, and are they ever? I mean, watching them put together back that Sprouts, it
Yes.
was pretty good.
It was really, really funny, but I think that point was hammered home there. But then in a much, much darker way, near the end of this
Yes.
episode, Carol makes a joke about a particular device that she would like to have.
Yep.
Zosia not only brings it, but as it turns out, it's active and it's dangerous. And then this just leads us into the, okay, you guys are willing to give her something dangerous. That means whatever you're doing here is really dangerous, because while you may want to give her what she wants, you have to know somewhat of a difference between right and wrong, right?
Yeah, and it seems like they do. I mean, she was asking for some pretty dark things,
Yeah.
and the person she was speaking to was basically like, "Yeah, we'll have to give it to you, but we are gonna try to talk you out of it. Like, we know that this isn't a great idea.
Yeah.
So while yes, also let's have a conversation about it." And I was glad to see that, because to me that means that there is some kind of wiggle room in there of humanity that's still in there, that's just like they're not just yes bots, that there are people in there that know that this is a bad idea and will be able to try to talk her out of it, even though it will still turn into a yes.
And this all is a reminder, to me at least, of this idea that the people who are trapped inside this collective, they know on some level that what's going on here is really, really bad. Because if we want to take this conversation at the end of this episode,
Mhm.
alongside that quick little pause that Sosha had with that choice between Carol and Kumba in episode 2, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're seeing the slightest element of resistance here. Like, they know that not having free will is really, really bad. It doesn't matter what this larger group is trying to say. So I feel like tinfoil hat, where this
Mhm.
show is ultimately going, is that Carol is going to start to break down a couple of walls and determining how to get through to some of these people, because otherwise this show can't just be her and Zosia the entire time. That's just a really small cast.
Very small cast. I do feel that this is going to be, in a lot of ways, Zosha, I think, is going to be the most important character. Obviously, we've seen her a lot, but I think
Mhm.
she's going to be the most important character. I said this in the review, and I still feel it now as well. That, we saw the whole, like, oh, I'm bringing you this. Oh my God, it's gone off. Now she's in the hospital. Like,
Yeah.
there's a couple times now that Carol has gone to save Zosha, and Zosha has gone to save Carol, where, Carol pulls the pin and Zosha's like, I'm just going to take that from you and deal with this and save your life, kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
it is a back and forth, but I feel like it is going to be a push and pull of who is going to get the other person to come over to the other side. Is Carol going to be able to break through to Zosha, because that is the person she's spending the most time with, and actually get through the collective to find the actual person in there and pull them out? Or is it going to be the other way around, where Zosha's able to actually pull Carol in to be like, hey, we have Helen in here. Hey, I'm in here. Hey, there's a lot of cool stuff in here. Join us.
I just love in general about these first 3 episodes how it is a complete flip in my mind from Breaking Bad, where instead of watching the nice guy turn dark, we're watching this just surly, curmudgeon-y person who's also a hero, even though she's not seemingly the person we would all want to be around most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, we even had that flashback to her at the ice hotel.
Yeah.
It's like 100 grand to stay there, and she's just so miserable. But to be fair, if I had to sleep on an ice bed, I'd be miserable too. I'm not spending 100 grand to sleep on a slab of ice. As beautiful as it was, it did look kind of miserable. But Helen was even sort of poking at Carol about that, to be like, hey, it doesn't matter where you are. Look at this gorgeous hotel that we're in. We have these beautiful lights that we can see in the sky. Like, this is such an amazing experience. And you're still unhappy. Your book is on the bestseller list and you're still unhappy. Like, there's no way to get through to you. You're just an inherently unhappy person. And it's hard to root for a character like that. Like, we go back to Succession.
Yeah.
Everybody's just terrible on that show, but by the end you find your way, you're just like rooting for Roman Roy there, and you can't help yourself. You know what I mean? And I think that
Yeah.
that's how it's going to come around with Carol, that it's going to be melting the ice and getting through.
Yeah, this is the coldest of cold opens in a number of different ways for this show. And they spent a lot of time on this, like a good 4 to 5 minutes. And so this is Vince obviously telling us that, yeah, this is a little bit of a window into Carol and Helen's relationship.
Yep.
That part of it does exist. But then beyond just that, is this meant to be a lesson in morality for Carol, to be happy with certain things that she does have? Or is this meant to be sort of a reminder to all of us that she sees the Northern Lights, which are just a wonderful phenomenon that I've never seen in person, but it feels like that alone is worth a trip like this. But then you're surrounded in the cold, you're miserable, but it is the power of choice to be able to make that choice and sit there and be witness to something that is so beautiful despite all of this misery around you, that this is something the collective is not going to be capable of, because you're never making the choice to go there experiencing either the good or the bad.
Okay, we do need to talk about the sky, because it's
Mhm.
been mentioned a couple times in these different episodes in the pilot. We saw her looking up at the sky with all the planes going by, all the different, like, gases in the air or whatever, just all in a line. She's just like, isn't that weird? That's
Yeah.
weird. Yeah, Carol, it's weird. And then there's this episode as well, where again, they're looking up at, lights that not everybody gets to see in their
Yeah.
lifetime, something that's very rare and very special, also up in the sky.
Here's where we're going to talk about the Chicken Little theory. Is Pluribus really, and I'm kind of joking, but kind of not. Is this really just Chicken Little? Because as many of you who probably read that story when you were a kid, Chicken Little's trying to convince everybody the sky is falling, and nobody really seems altogether eager to listen. Carol is running around saying, including to these other 13 or 12, this is really, really bad. What's going on here? And nobody is willing to listen. And I think it all kind of comes down to, okay, where can you find the evidence? And
Mhm.
maybe, just maybe, the end of this episode is going to be the proof that she needs, where she can go to some of these other people now and be like, ask for some really dangerous things and watch them be willing to give them to you.
Yeah, and some people may not have a problem with that. I mean, we've seen, the guy's got the jet, he's got girls that have to say yes, very dark stuff going on here.
Yeah.
But you also have people that want to be with their families, where it's kind of like, okay, that I don't have a problem with that because I would never ask for those things. I just want to be with my family. So, that's a problem for you. If you're going to ask for those things, then you're the bad person.
I just come out of this episode in particular feeling very satisfied, but
Yeah.
also very curious about some of the things that are being presented to us, given that the show is definitely withholding some things to us. And I think a big question is going to be, you bring up the Men in Black analogy.
Hmm.
If they actually give that to us later and they sort of say, okay, it's because you're experiencing this from Carol's eyes, you're not going to see these things she forgot about. We're going to give them to you later. Are we as viewers going to be okay with that? Or are we going to feel tricked and by virtue of that feel like, okay, can we even trust what you guys are telling us anymore?
I think because the narrator is Carol here, who is she's not trusting these people.
Mhm,
We should not be trusting what they're saying. That's how I feel watching this. Like
mhm.
everything that Zosha's saying, oh yeah, you have free will, you have this, whatever. And then these band-aids are showing up out of nowhere. Something's going on there, not being honest about everything that is going on.
And that is where we are with Pluribus Season 1, Episode 3. But let us know in the comments what you thought about this episode, but also what do you think is behind these band-aids? Hit that
Mhm.
subscribe button. We really, really appreciate your support here at the channel, and we'll see you here next time.